Have you ever wondered what lies behind a stranger's enigmatic gaze? At a cozy cafe on the banks of the Tagus River in Lisbon, Portugal, millionaire Oliver Bennett and his 6-year-old daughter Amelia find themselves captivated by Clara, the waitress with those deep green eyes, eyes that have never once smiled. "Daddy, why does Miss Clara always look so sad?" Amelia asks, her innocent voice tugging at the heart. Could a heartbreaking secret be hidden in her soul? What drives a young woman to live as if she's always running away? Join us on the journey to uncover Clara's story, a tale that will leave you breathless and moved to your core. Dear viewers, get ready for an inspiring story. If you're excited, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. We love connecting with all of you across the globe. Now, let's begin. The coffee in Oliver Bennett's hand had gone stone cold, chilled like ice, as if forgotten for hours. Time seemed to stop every Tuesday at exactly 3:47 p.m., when Clara passed his table at Alfama Glow in Lisbon. Her emerald eyes, deep, sorrowful, never met his gaze. Her delicate features remained rigid, as if she carried a shattered world on her shoulders. Oliver, 40, a renowned software developer, watched her glide between tables with the grace of a silent wraith. Yet something was off. An invisible crack in the perfect picture that knotted his stomach each time he entered. Over these past months, bringing his 6-year-old daughter Amelia for their weekly father-daughter dinners, he had never once seen Clara smile, a truth that frightened him more than he dared admit. Amelia, clutching her steaming hot chocolate, looked up and whispered, tugging his sleeve, "Daddy, why does that beautiful girl always look so sad?" Her innocent words made Oliver's heart skip a beat. If even pure-hearted Amelia noticed, the reality could no longer be denied. Clara's pain radiated from her like the dying warmth of a fading fire. She moved gently yet cautiously, as if striving for invisibility. Her eyes never lingered more than a second on anyone, as though she feared they might glimpse the secrets she buried deep. Oliver murmured, "I don't know, sweetheart." But his mind was racing with darker possibilities, memories of volunteering with survivors of domestic violence in London, of eyes like Clara's, eyes bearing untold wounds. Clara emerged from the kitchen with 2 plates of food. Her uniform, pristine despite the dinner rush, only heightened her haunting beauty. Olive-warm skin, hair pulled back to reveal the elegant curve of her neck. But it was her eyes that haunted him. Boundless emerald pools hiding secrets he both longed to understand and dreaded to uncover. He watched as she set the plates on the neighboring table. Her hand trembled despite her swift movements. Her shoulders tensed, as if every guest's request were an invisible blade. Oliver felt a surge of empathy, not only for Clara's fragility, but for the way she masked her suffering, much like he'd hidden his own grief behind smiles for Amelia. He yearned to reach out, to ask a gentle question, offer a sincere smile. Leaning forward, he introduced himself and Amelia, explained that they were regulars, and asked her name. Clara hesitated, as though speaking it were an act of daring. "Clara. Just Clara," she whispered, her voice so soft it nearly merged with the clink of dishes. She turned swiftly and tucked the tray under her arm, resuming her work. Oliver slid back to his seat, eyes trailing her every cautious step, as though the floor itself were riddled with cracks, visible only to her. Amelia, chocolate-stained and curious, looked up at her father. She said nothing more, yet Oliver knew she, too, sensed the difference. A quiet question rose within him. What had driven Clara to live in fear? He could not shake the memory of her trembling hands or her gaze that seemed to flee the world itself. His heart, worn by loss, urged him forward. Watching Amelia draw a flower on paper, Oliver felt a resolute calm settle over him. A single kind question, a genuine smile, might be the first step toward touching the secret Clara so desperately guarded. He had no idea that in that moment he was launching a journey that would forever intertwine their fates. Every week, Oliver Bennett and his 6-year-old daughter Amelia returned to Alfama Glow, where the rich aroma of coffee and the clink of cups created their familiar rhythm. They would find Clara among the crowded tables, her silent figure a piece of the scene that didn't quite belong. Oliver, his heart scarred by loss, began to see her not merely as a server, but as a mystery begging to be unraveled. Amelia, with her boundless imagination, drew riotous fields of flowers, crayon strokes bursting with color, and called Clara the mysterious lady, placing her pictures on Clara's tray with a gummy-toothed grin as though her hope might dispel the darkness in Clara's eyes. Clara accepted them, her hands trembling just slightly. Sometimes, a faint smile touched her lips, yet her gaze always held Amelia's light while keeping Oliver at arm's length. Slowly, Clara opened up, but only to Amelia. She listened intently to the child's innocent tales of dreams and school days, as if seeking a fragment of lost peace. To Oliver, however, she maintained an invisible wall, her answers curt, her eyes avoiding his, as though terrified of being truly seen. He sensed her inner struggle, a storm between the yearning for connection and the fear of being hurt. He longed to understand her, but every time he tried to strike up a conversation, Clara retreated like a bird afraid of its own cage. One evening, when the restaurant was nearly empty, only a few silent diners in the corner, Amelia, irrepressibly innocent, coaxed Clara into a game of Tell Your Secret. Perched on her high chair, her feet swinging, clutching her now cold hot chocolate, Clara gave a faint, polite smile, her lips upturned, but not her eyes. Then, when Amelia whispered, "My secret is, I wish my mommy were here," Clara froze. Her emerald eyes brimmed with tears, as though those words had pierced the deepest wound. Oliver watched, his chest tightening. He saw himself in that moment, in the days after losing his wife, when pain blurred everything. Clara bowed her head and gripped her tray, struggling to stanch the tide of emotion flooding her. Seizing the moment, Oliver spoke softly, inviting Clara to join them for a picnic in Eduardo VII Park. Clara hesitated, her eyes flickering between longing and dread. Then, at last, she agreed, stepping toward the park with cautious grace, as though every footfall were a wager. There, amid Amelia's playful laughter, Clara revealed a small shard of her past. She had once loved photography, capturing the world through her lens. But life took that away. Her voice quivered, each word a fragment of a shattered dream. Amelia, unaware of the weight of those words, presented Clara with yet another flower drawing, scrawled in childish letters, "For Clara, so she won't be sad." Oliver noted a fragile spark of hope in Clara's eyes, real, though tenuous, like light through a narrow crack. Yet he recognized, behind that spark, a darker secret she had yet to face. That night, after Amelia had left clutching her latest artwork, Clara remained by the table. Her hands clenched the napkin's edge. She met Oliver's gaze, her eyes wavering, then whispered, her voice so low she seemed to dread her own words. She confessed she was fleeing Hugo, her ex-husband, a powerful lawyer in Amsterdam. He had stolen everything: her dreams, her freedom, even her beloved mother, who had died under the pressures he imposed. Oliver felt his blood run cold. Clara's confession, brief yet laden like a curse, revealed that she was more than a sad girl. She was a soul fighting for survival. Watching Amelia draw another blossom, Oliver felt a quiet resolve bloom within him. He could not leave Clara alone in that darkness. Their journey, its destination still unknown, had begun in that moment. A week passed, and Alfamaglo felt emptier to Oliver Bennett. Clara, the silent figure who once glided between tables bearing trays of coffee, was gone. The cup before him had gone cold, but the worry burning in his chest felt hotter than ever. The manager, with a bored shrug, informed him that Clara had quit abruptly, no explanation given. Oliver felt his heart tighten. A bad premonition constricted his breath. He glanced at Amelia, sketching a flower on paper, and realized that Clara's absence was more than a vacancy in the cafe. It was a crack in the small world they were building. Clara, with those mysterious green eyes, was clearly fleeing something terrifying. Anxiety gnawed at his mind. Oliver could not stay seated. He, a man accustomed to solving every problem with a software developer's calm, now leaned on his connections to track Clara down. After frantic calls and sleepless nights, he discovered her hiding in a seedy motel on the outskirts of Porto. The room she rented, redolent of stale cigarette smoke and flickering neon light, was the perfect refuge for someone determined to vanish. When Oliver knocked, Clara opened the door. Her face was ashen, her eyes wide with panic. She recoiled, hands gripping her sleeves, as though his presence was a threat. The fear etched on her face, sharp as a blade, froze Oliver in place, his heart heavy. In a trembling voice, Clara revealed that Hugo had found her. A single, icy text message threatened to destroy anyone who dared help her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, each drop carrying a shard of painful memory. She choked out the story of Hugo, her ex-husband, a powerful lawyer in Amsterdam who had not only stolen her freedom, but indirectly taken her beloved mother's life. His threats, his midnight calls, had driven her mother into a fatal stroke, leaving Clara with relentless guilt. Oliver listened, his blood turning cold. Hugo was not merely an abuser. He was a darkness that hunted her, intent on destroying everything she held dear. Clara bowed her head, arms wrapped tightly around herself, as though she could shrink away from invisible eyes. She whispered, her voice fragmented, that she must run. She had to leave Oliver and Amelia behind to protect them. The depth of her fear, profound and desperate, left Oliver feeling powerless. Yet it also awoke a fierce protective instinct he had buried beneath years of loss. He looked at Clara and saw not merely a frightened woman on the run, but a soul fighting for survival. He could not abandon her. He would not let Hugo's darkness swallow her whole once more. With quiet determination, Oliver reached out to his old friend, Detective Sofia Mendez of the Lisbon Police Department. Sofia, with her sharp yet warm voice, proposed a daring plan. Use Clara as bait to lure Hugo into the open. He, with his connections and history of skirting the law, was a formidable adversary, but Sofia believed this was the only chance to end the nightmare. Oliver looked back at Clara. Her eyes flickered between fragile hope and overwhelming fear. He took her hand, gentle yet firm, and promised to protect her, even though he knew Hugo would not be easily defeated. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling and clasped together. She looked at Oliver, her gaze conflicted, as though weighing trust against the urge to flee once more. Oliver felt his heart pounding, not only out of concern for Clara, but because of something deeper, a connection he hadn't felt since losing his wife. He pictured Amelia, clutching her drawing of a field of flowers, and realized he couldn't let Clara vanish. He persuaded her to stay, his voice soft, but resolute. Clara nodded, though her eyes remained filled with unease. Both knew the journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but from that moment on, they would no longer face it alone. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a drink and stay tuned for the next surprising turn in this story. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always wonderful to see people joining us from all around the world. Comment 1 if you're enjoying the story, so we can continue bringing you more compelling narratives. Oliver Bennett drove through the night. The tires hummed steadily along the road toward Faro in southern Portugal. His eyes were weary, but his heart felt even heavier, each beat a reminder of Clara. He knew she was out there somewhere on the quay, preparing to board a ferry and disappear forever. Thinking of Amelia, sleeping safely in her grandmother's arms back in Lisbon, Oliver felt a sharp pang of anguish. He could not let Clara, the woman who had quietly entered his world and his daughter's, vanish like a shadow. The ferry terminal appeared in the dim light. The tang of sea salt and engine oil filled the air. Clara stood there with a small suitcase at her side, her face pale, her green eyes wide with fear. She stepped back when she saw Oliver, her hand clenching the handle of her bag, as if he were a threat, rather than the person she had come to trust. Clara, exhausted after days on the run, looked like a lost soul. Her shoulders trembled, and every breath was a struggle to remain calm. Oliver approached, his gaze gentle but firm. He took her hand, and the coldness of her fingers made his heart clench. She hung her head, tears sliding down her cheeks, and in that moment, she revealed a piece of her shattered heart. She loved Oliver. She loved Amelia. She cherished the simple moments with them, the flower-field drawings, the laughter-filled picnics. Yet that very love made her want to flee. She feared Hugo, her ex-husband in Amsterdam, would find them and destroy everything she treasured, just as he had destroyed her mother. That fear, sharp as a blade, imprisoned her in a whirlwind with no escape. Oliver stood silently, feeling the tremor in Clara's hand. He saw himself in her, in those months after his wife's death, when pain made him want to run away from the world. But his wife, with her warm smile, had taught him that love is not about running, but fighting together. For the first time in years, Oliver let his heart speak. He looked at Clara, his voice soft yet resolute, and told her he loved her, not because she needed saving, but because she was stronger than she knew. He saw that strength in how she had stood firm through so much suffering, in how gently she treated Amelia even as she herself was breaking. His words, like a soft breeze, touched Clara and began to topple the wall she had built around herself. Clara looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. Her gaze wavered between hope and despair. She wanted to trust Oliver. She wanted to cling to his promise, but the shadow of Hugo still haunted her. He was not just an abuser, but a calculating nightmare, with connections powerful enough to conceal his crimes. Oliver felt that fear, but he did not back down. He spoke of his wife, of the lessons she had left behind, of how love had pulled him through his darkest days. Those words, simple yet sincere, were like a lifeline dragging Clara back from the abyss. She squeezed his hand, small yet full of meaning, as if she were choosing to stay. even if only for the moment. They returned to Lisbon, preparing for a daring plan that Detective Sofia Mendez had proposed, luring Hugo into a trap at Jardim da Estrela, a park in the city's heart. Clara, though she agreed, still carried an undercurrent of fear. She sat in Oliver's small apartment, cradling a cup of cold tea, her gaze distant. She knew Hugo could kill her if the plan failed, but the image of Amelia, with her drawing of a flower-filled field, made it impossible for her to keep running. Oliver watched her, his heart pounded, not just with worry, but with something deeper, a connection he never thought he would find again. He promised to protect her, even though he knew Hugo would be a formidable adversary. Clara nodded, her eyes still conflicted, but a small spark kindled within them, not hope exactly, but determination. Oliver looked at her and saw a woman not merely fleeing, but learning to stand on her own. He thought of Amelia, of their daughter's drawings, and realized that this journey was not just for Clara, but for the little family they were building. They readied themselves for the confrontation. Every step weighted with gravity, but from that moment on, Clara was no longer alone. Clara sat on the wooden bench in Jardim da Estrela, her fingers gripping the hem of her blouse, the small recording device Sofia had provided pressed tightly against her skin. Each beat of her heart thundered in her ears, as if the whole world knew she was waiting for a storm. The nearby fountain gurgled softly, but its sound could not soothe the fear choking her. With her deep green eyes, Clara scanned the park, searching for Hugo, the ex-husband who had hunted her for years. She knew he would come, bearing the confidence of a man who had never failed. Not far away, Oliver Bennett watched from a surveillance car. His heart pounded, each beat a silent prayer for Clara's safety. He gripped the wheel, his chest heavy with thoughts of Amelia, his daughter, safe in Lisbon, and Clara, the woman he loved, now facing her worst nightmare. Hugo appeared, walking with meticulous poise in a tailored black suit. His face was cold, yet his smile was as smooth as a mask. He sat down next to Clara, close enough that she could feel his breath, an expensive cologne laced with menace. Clara froze. Every instinct urged her to run, but she forced herself to stay. This recorder was her last hope to end the nightmare. Hugo leaned in, his voice low and precise, slicing through the air. He told her she could not hide forever, that he had found her and would not stop until he destroyed Oliver and Amelia. Clara felt her blood turn to ice. The image of Amelia clutching her flower drawing flashed through her mind, and she trembled. He seized her wrist, his grip iron hard, sending a jolt of pain up her arm. From his jacket, Hugo drew a small dagger. Its steel blade gleamed in the dim light. He whispered with cruel intent that she would regret betraying him. Fear surged in Clara, but beneath it burned a small spark. Years of smoldering anger. She thought of her mother, taken by Hugo's cruelty, and of Oliver, who had shown her she was worthy of love. In that instant, Clara ceased to be a victim. She screamed, her voice echoing, declaring she no longer belonged to him. Pushed by desperation, she shoved Hugo hard. He staggered, the dagger nearly slipping from his grasp. Clara's scream was the signal, like a bell shattering silence. Sofia Mendez's team, hidden among the crowd, sprang forward from every direction, guns drawn. But Hugo, predator by nature, did not surrender easily. He swung the dagger at Clara in blind rage. Time seemed to slow. Clara, recalling the self-defense moves Sofia had taught her, deflected his arm. The blade whooshed past, inches from her. Then she struck him with a powerful punch to the chest. Pain forged into strength, and Hugo collapsed, gasping for breath. Police officers quickly restrained him, snapping cuffs on his wrists and hauling him upright. The dagger clattered to the ground, steel ringing sharply. The recorder, still running, had captured every threat, every moment of cruelty. Clara stood frozen, her breath ragged, hands trembling no longer from fear. She watched Hugo being led away, his gaze still burning with hatred. But for the first time, she did not feel small. Oliver sprang from the car, rushing to her side. His arms enveloped her as if afraid she might vanish. He felt her heartbeat still racing and knew that Clara had not merely survived, but had triumphed. Sophia approached, retrieving the recording device. Her voice was calm, yet her eyes shone with pride. Hugo was arrested for assault, for making threats, and for violating the newly imposed restraining order. Clara looked at Oliver. Her eyes glistened not with pain, but with something new: freedom. They stood there, in the heart of the park, words unspoken, yet their bond felt stronger than ever. Clara's journey from a lost soul to a woman reclaimed had irrevocably transformed. 5 months have passed since Clara faced the darkness of her past, and now her life, alongside Oliver Bennett and little Amelia, is painted in warm hues in their new home in Tuscany, Italy. The quaint house, with its honeyed brick walls and the faint scent of freshly baked bread, is the place where they've built a new world, where pain has gradually given way to hope. Clara, once a trembling figure on the Faro dock, now walks with gentle confidence, her green eyes no longer shying from the light. She's rediscovered her love of photography. Each image she captures a fragment of her healing journey. Her small gallery, its white walls hung with sunflower field photographs, stands as proof of the hope that Amelia, with her boundless 6-year-old heart, has sown in her soul. Amelia, her little hands stained with paint, tends the garden behind the house, sunflowers reaching skyward as if chasing a child's dream. She still draws, each pencil stroke a reminder that family isn't just blood. It's those who choose to stay. Oliver, who once lived in the shadow of grief after losing his wife, now finds joy in life's simple moments. The sound of Amelia's laughter, Clara's gentle gaze. He watches them, his heart filled with a feeling he thought lost forever: wholeness. Hugo, Clara's ex-husband, once the nightmare that haunted her, now sits behind bars, serving a 9-year sentence. The old evidence, dusted off like yellowed pages in a book, ensures he can never harm her again. Clara, though still bearing invisible scars, no longer lives in fear. One evening, in the warm glow of their kitchen, the aroma of melting cheese and toasted bread wafts through the air. Clara stands by the stove, skillet in hand, guiding Oliver and Amelia through the art of making cheesy toast. Oliver, adorably clumsy, burns one corner black, prompting Amelia to erupt in giggles, her eyes sparkling like stars. Clara shakes her head, a genuine smile lighting her face, free of any tension. She rearranges the toast on the plate, her hand steady, as if the old pain has melted away in these simple moments. Oliver looks at her and sees a new Clara, not merely a survivor, but someone who's learned to love and be loved. Warmth blossoms in his chest, as if he's finally found a family. Amelia, perched on her high chair, holds up a new drawing, a family of 3 standing in a field of sunflowers. She lifts it proudly and declares in her pure voice that family is when you make each other laugh. Clara pauses, skillet in hand, and gazes at the drawing. Then she looks at Amelia, her eyes brimming with tears, this time tears of joy. She kneels and wraps her arms around her daughter, holding her tightly, as if afraid she might vanish. "That's right," she murmurs, her voice catching, "and you make me so happy." Amelia grins and nestles against Clara's shoulder, unaware that she's become the light guiding Clara's path. Oliver leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching them, his heart filled with an indescribable warmth. He thought back to the months after his wife's death, when his world lay in shattered fragments. Clara, whose journey carried her from fear to freedom, had taught him that love not only heals, but builds homes that last forever. He stepped forward, resting a hand on Clara's shoulder. His eyes spoke what words could not. Clara looked up, her smile gentle, free of any trace of old pain. They sat together at the table, sharing cheesy toast, their laughter echoing through the cozy kitchen. Amelia, clutching her drawing, chattered about the sunflowers in the garden, and Clara listened, her eyes lighting up like the blossoms in the picture. Their life, though imperfect, was a portrait painted with love and courage. Clara, once a lost soul, had finally found where she belonged. Oliver, who had once feared opening his heart, learned to believe in the goodness around him. And Amelia, with her innocent heart, was the thread that bound them, a reminder that family is found in simple moments and shared smiles. Their home in Tuscany, surrounded by sunflowers and Clara's gallery, was more than a dwelling. It was proof that, after every storm, the light always finds a way to shine. Dear friends, Oliver, Clara, and Amelia's story reminds us that light always follows darkness, and family are those who choose to stay by our side through the storm. What do you think of Clara's journey? From a frightened girl to someone who found herself again? How did Amelia's flower drawings touch your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell me your own story of finding hope in your darkest moments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss our next inspiring tales.